Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Stephen Sarowick. Stephen?
Look, like one of the lyrics is short people got no reason to live. That is the lyric that Randy Newman wrote, and then we let him do Toy Story.
Dude, I'm staying away from defending Randy Newman. He also did some other movie, right? Like, Toy Story wasn't the first one that he worked on. I feel like he worked on something else.
First of all, he's done a ton of Pixar. Is that what you're asking? No, that's
No,
not
no.
what you're asking. You mean like
He worked on a Disney movie, too. Like, I feel like he worked on a Disney movie, and then they're like, he was so good, let's put him on Toy Story. But it might be the other way around.
Of all of the things that I've never wanted to really Google for this show because I was afraid of what it was going to do to my search history and like the lists that I'm already on, Randy Newman is the thing that I'm like, really, this is the thing, this is what I want to push my luck on. So he's done Toy Story. Toy Story was the first thing that he did, and then it was like Monsters Inc., Toy Story 4, Bugs Life, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 2. Marriage Story.
I didn't see Marriage Story. I should see
Natural.
Marriage Story.
He did The Natural. That's right. Earlier. For some reason, that's not listed in chronological order.
But then I think he did Princess and the Frog, but I thought there was like a weird connector between those. But yeah. Hey, how do you feel about this theory, right? We're just going to smack it with theories. I have like an actual happy thing that I want to lead the show on, but one of us started singing Short People by Randy Newman. Who that was is lost to time. We'll never know.
To be fair, that person technically started singing Slow People.
Yeah, well, technically that person started singing... I started with something else. It was me. I've revealed myself. Your cunning ploy at trickery worked.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's. Well, I had to calm back down. We're talking about Randy Newman. Oh, how do you feel about the theory that Alvin and the Chipmunks: The Squeakquel is responsible for the death of 2D animated Disney films?
Well, damn, Devin, I didn't really have an opinion on it before, but now I feel real good about it. Why? How could that possibly be? How could that possibly be the case?
They released at the same time, and the Squeakquel won the weekend, as Princess and the Frog was left in relative obscurity. Though we have found out that there's going to be a Tiana show on Disney Plus,
as well as they are converting all of Splash Mountain over to her, right?
Yeah, Princess and the Frog is what.
Princess and the Frog theme is going to be the new Splash Mountain instead of Song of the South,
which is a little disappointing to me, but only because I'm sick and tired of the erasure of Song of the South from like the hearts and minds of America. I mean, let's be honest. The erasure of Song of the South made it so that people went on Splash Mountain and probably had no idea what was going on. Like, there has to have been a generation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the most callous thinking then would say Disney would want to fix that.
Yes. So, okay, so then secondary argument.
Version. The other side of it is good. But anyway, keep going.
But then they're also they're going with Princess and the Frog, which, like, I love Princess and the Frog. Randy Newman association notwithstanding. But it just seems like that's a weird choice for Splash Mountain. Like, Splash Mountain was the selling point of Disney World. It's going to be awesome. I mean, Friends on the Other Side is going to be the song when you go up the Laughing Place drop. It has to be.
It has to be. Yeah. It's going to be creepy and man.
Like, it'll be fun. And I'll be happy about that. But, like, it's not like when you take Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and replace it with Winnie the Pooh. Replacing Song of the South with Princess and the Frog, it's like, okay, something obscure that people don't know because of racial connotations with something also kind of obscure that sort of tried to fix racial issues at Disney. I don't know. I like Princess and the Frog, but
No, man, there's a clear line it's pretty obvious what the thinking is in making it that, and for good or for ill. Like you're not wrong that you could step back and be like, this feels like racial pandering, which is also a form of racism. But on the other hand, it's Disney taking a step in the right direction, which is so rare to see that I don't know if I'm going to be the one to really sit back and complain, you know?
That's a very good point. And yeah, we should probably just be happy that Disney has acknowledged an issue. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still sad that Song of the South is forgotten because I like a lot of the story there. And I know why it's forgotten. I know the idea that it perpetrates the idea of the happy slave. But then, like, the real scary thing about Song of the South, and I've said this, I don't know if I've said it here, but I've said it enough times in my life that I'm okay putting it on my podcast, is the fact that it takes place after Emancipation Proclamation. I should probably say the word correctly. It is post the Antebellum. It is Reformation South. And the really sad thing is that their lives didn't change that much. They weren't property anymore. They had some rights, but they then had to continue living on the plantations of the people who had enslaved them, eking out a meager living, which, like, we forget that. But it's an important thing to remember in
things
terms
didn't just
of
suddenly get better, right?
Yeah, change is a slow process. And when we look back at history and we fail to acknowledge the dirtier moments of it, like the fact that it's not like slaves were free and then suddenly, no, and especially what we've learned in 2020 is, you know, racist attitudes in America have kept down, you know, African Americans for a very long time and are still continuing to do that. And I'm not sure how I got here. Oh, I guess Princess and the Frog being defeated by the Squeakquel, and Princess and the Frog then later going on to be the thing that defeats Song of the South. And I'm okay with that. You know what? There's the end of this, is I am okay with that.
I also, and just to put a coda on this, I don't think we've seen the last of 2D Disney animation. That Disney loves one thing, and that is nostalgia. Like they never have shied away from it. Even when they were brand new, they were using the nostalgia of fairy tales and fairy tale worlds in order to bring you to them, right? And so I would bet my future children that they will be seeing a 2D animated Disney movie in theaters at some point in their lives, because we're gonna see that in like 20 years. Disney's gonna be like, hey guys, guess what we're doing? We're opening up a 2D animation studio, and everybody's gonna lose their fucking shit. And I'll be part of that. I'm not gonna act like I'm not gonna be part of that crowd. But yeah, don't worry. I don't think that's the last we've seen of 2D Disney animation.
I'd be very surprised actually if they did do that, because looking at something like Tangled, which was their next step after Princess and the Frog, it's still a lot of weirdly hand-drawn stuff, but hand-drawn into that 3D plane. And that's actually what we've been seeing with a lot of the stuff going forward.
For sure. In their movies, yes, but it's funny that you say Tangled. I know you didn't mean to do this, but the more successful part of Tangled is
Tangled
the
Ever After.
Is the Tangled TV show, which is a 2D animation version of Tangled, which is by far the more successful, more marketable version of Tangled.
Yes, I mean, you're not wrong, and I'm glad that you got there so I didn't have to introduce it. That's why we work, Sejin. That's why we work. But you're not wrong. I don't know when it would happen. I would certainly be very happy, but there was this moment where, like, we're going all in on 2D. You say you want 2D, well, here you go. And the Princess and the Frog was defeated by the Squeakquel. I mean, just looking at the numbers, which is something we do a lot here at the Say Report, and it's disappointing because then Disney's like, not marketable, but you're not wrong. Like, they're still 2D, they're still 8-bit video games, right?
Right.
And those sell like hotcakes because people just want that. Well, it's easier to make them, and they're not usually crunch situations. We're going to talk about Cyberpunk today, and that's just the spoiler. It's not right now, because what I want to talk about right now and what I actually wanted to address about 10 minutes ago, but then Sejin and I got on Randy Newman beforehand. We didn't get on Randy Newman. The topic of Randy Newman came up. And I think two short people.
Fucking ruined everything.
What's your how tall are you, Sejin? Is that a too big of a divulge for you?
Well, people out there are going to be very surprised to hear that I am actually 6'10".
I know.
The people out there that have never seen me, and you hear this voice, just imagine this is coming out of a 6'10" individual.
Well, a name like Sejin, you just imagine like a tall, blonde, almost Norse-esque figure. I certainly know
definitely.
other people, when I tell them I have a friend named Sejin, that's how they describe you to me.
The first
So-
thing they say is, "Man, that sounds like a dude with a head full of hair."
Yeah, right? And it's glorious. Meanwhile, I will be honest over here and say that I am 5'10". Not that you're not being honest. I will just own up to my own height as being a 5'10" man, which I recently realized that there's a character in fiction who's 5'10", and it kind of blew my mind. The person escapes me right now, but it's like a superhero, and it's like, wow, who's only 5'10"? And it's not Wolverine, because he's much shorter than 5'10". He's almost Ninja Turtle in proportions. But you know, we're like, I'm a short people, so Randy Newman offends me with that song. But what I actually want to talk about, and it happened right before we started recording, is that the Electoral College actually voted for Joe Biden. And I know that's a weird statement that I said, because a long time ago, we found out that Joe Biden won based on Electoral College votes. But I personally was not going to believe it until today, until December 14th, 2020.
Yeah, man, this week has just been rolling in the good news in terms of that. I mean, the Texas Supreme Court just basically, the Supreme Court laughing in Texas's face was pretty good.
Yeah.
But then the news today just bringing it all home. Oh, man.
Like,
it feels good. It feels very good.
It's the weight off. Like,
yeah, we said we were not really going to truly breathe again until this exact moment, and here we are. So,
there are still 37 days of the Trump presidency, and until he's actually out of the White House, I don't know if I'm going to breathe as easily as I should, but I am going to celebrate right now the fact that Trump did not win a second term as President of the United States of America. And I'm also going to ignore the fact that because he did have the title, he is entitled to a Secret Service detail for the remainder of his life. He will always be Mr. President.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's going to be things that are going to rub us the wrong way for the rest of our lives against him, but you know, that's that's something that we've dealt with in the past in this country. There have been plenty of people out there that have taken their anger out on that sort of stuff in some very entertaining ways, so we'll see what happens that way.
I just feel bad for your future grandchildren when they have to learn about the Trump presidency in history class.
Yeah, and they ask me what the hell I let happen.
Yeah, right.
I have no answer for them. Yeah.
And you just give them a box set of the State Report and say, this is what I tried to do.
This is it.
This was how I rebelled. But yeah, it's awesome. That's like just super great news to hear that the Electoral College didn't do something crazy, because there are all of these like movements out there, and they're noble movements where like there are people in the Electoral College, electoral votes, that say, if it comes down to it, we will vote with the popular vote. Like, I think there are 15 states that are dedicated to that. Like, abolishing the Electoral College, but not truly abolishing it, just sort of going by the wishes of the popular vote.
Right.
And the fact that there are, like, that's a documented, there's coverage on that movement in America. But if there's a movement like that, that doesn't mean that there's not a movement of people who would try to steal the presidency via secret Electoral College coup.
Yeah, no, I mean, so, right, we can't allow a common sense movement that speaks to the all of the pitfalls of the Electoral College and why it must be abolished, which is something I firmly stand behind. But you cannot let that conversation be hijacked by people out there that are just like, yeah, I think that this person should have been president. So despite the fact that they lost the popular vote and also lost in all of these huge metropolitan areas, that we should still just vote them in anyway. It's like, no, that's not we're not having the same conversation, sir. Like,
right. That's one of my fears whenever I have an idea, is that it's like the thing wherever you make a choice, two paths are created, two universes stem from whatever choice that you make, which is terrifying and can be enough to make a person not want to get out of bed in the morning. Even though if you don't get out of bed, that's another universe you created.
That's a choice.
It's a slippery slope. It's scary. But I have that same idea with like any movement of progress, any progressive idea, the reductive idea also kind of comes into existence because of perception and viewing it. So those people who want to abolish the Electoral College because, well, you know, it's super archaic and we don't need it in an America where, like, everyone can be tracked. A lot of people made the joke that American Idol is able to handle 5 times the numbers of votes of an American election, and they can give you, you know, results in 24 hours.
Yeah, that's because, but they also, there's also the idea that I remember seasons of that show where they were like, ooh, people are spamming the phone line, or they've got bots that are calling in every 10 seconds for this person and texting every, you know, like, and all that shit.
Yeah, I know.
But
there are problems, but okay, if we're going to live in a state of, we're monitored, right? I don't know if there's someone at the switchboard all the time watching everything that everybody does, but in a world where we have cell phones that track our locations, and even if you don't have like a normal a smartphone, if you just have a flip phone, they can still track you off of that. So like, we should have the ability in order to assign 1 vote to each person.
Yeah, man. You're not wrong. We are constantly being watched. The digital panopticon is real. But the idea that system is flawless is also flawed. You know what I mean? Like,
any system is going to have flaws. That's
sure.
That's the first thing that you need to admit if we're having this conversation about how to fix the election process in America. Not to mention the fact that,
which we're going to do right here tonight, people. in our hour today, we are going to fix it all.
I mean, we're nowhere near qualified.
I'm glad that's your concern.
But then again, neither are the people who would actually be responsible for it. There's also the nasty thing of like how
Dennis Miller. Sorry, keep going.
How much money that it like affects actual voting when you look at lobbyists and just everything, PACs and everything that exists in Hollywood, in Washington D.C.
Yeah,
I confused the
United
two.
And but Citizens United and like the ways in which it has affected every election since it was allowed is like, I mean, it's horrendous, and like we all see it happening and can do nothing to stop it because we don't have enough money.
Yeah, so it's not a perfect system, but it seemed to have worked this time. And, you know, we said it in our 200th episode, which I can't believe was only 4 weeks ago, right? Seems like December caught whatever March had.
Ouch.
I don't know, man. I can't believe that there's 2 weeks left in December.
I know, man. I have Christmas gifts I got to get out. I got your gift sitting over here next to me, and I was like, shit, I meant to send this out 2 weeks ago.
But you still have time.
I know. I still have time. I can still change.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just very strange that like it's elongating. But again, like, we started this as a way to sort of rage against the Trump regime and everything that was happening, and it's happy to see a win. And yes, and I think that's the last we're going to say until Biden is officially inaugurated as our 46th president.
As you take another deep breath and hold it for another month. Yeah.
Jesus. It's great, isn't it? Living in America in these new and trying times.
Oh man. So the good news. But jeez, do we want to roll right into the bad news? Do we want to get right into some cyberpunk like reactions and what's been going on?
Yeah, let's do that, because then hopefully happier things prevail. I have a Christmas special that I want to talk about that I think would be an awful way to finish this episode of the Say Report until you save it with a good Christmas special. Those are words I just shared.
No, let's do this. That's good. Let's do this thing. But yeah, we'd be remiss to not mention the raging controversy in gaming right now, going on with the release of Cyberpunk 2077. You know, it's weird because I am plugged into a lot of people that are not part of this controversy. They're not having these issues. The kinds of groups that I follow and the kinds of people that I follow are not in a position to really be kind of affected by this. A lot of people playing on next gen systems, a lot of people playing on high end PCs, a lot of people playing in places where any issues that the game is truly having is like they're playing in optimal conditions. That's the phrase I'm looking for. So that being said, I still can't ignore the dumpster fire going on outside of my bubble.
So if we're going to talk about have you played Cyberpunk 2077? That's the first question.
My hope, and still, and I will say this, still my hope is that I was getting it for Christmas. I am getting it for Christmas, and if not, my intention is to purchase it soon after, ideally with the purchase of a PS5. But let's talk about it.
Okay. So if we're going to talk about my experiences with Cyberpunk 2077, we have to talk a little bit about the state of cloud gaming in the wider world right now.
Okay. Yeah, man.
And the fact of the matter is, Stadia launched a year ago, and then doing what Amazon does this year, they launched their own version of that cloud streaming service.
With controller, like not just the cloud streaming service, but also with the hardware to go along with it, right?
Very much trying to not be a Stadia killer, but be Apple's version. Not Apple. I don't know. They did that too with Apple Arcade, and I don't understand it at all. But be Amazon's version. The Bezos solution to Google Stadia came out, and it's called Amazon Luna. And after trying for a very long time, I got accepted into the beta program for Amazon Luna. I say trying. I put my name on a list and then I forgot about it until they sent me an email. Let's just be honest about it. But
as a podcast that was recently accepted to the Amazon podcasting community, yeah, basically you put your name on a list and you wait till Amazon is ready for you.
Yeah, that's how Amazon do. But yeah, so they sent me. I'm on Luna. I was able to get the controller, which the controller is not good. We raved about the Stadia controller a couple of weeks ago on this show. And I am sad to report that the Amazon controller is nowhere near as good. The grips are really nice, but all of the face buttons and control sticks are very, very cheaply made. And I promise that this will relate to Cyberpunk. I promise.
No, yeah. But I'm not sticking with the Amazon stuff for a minute. Like I'm not surprised because the other thing that Amazon promises when they do their thing is they are going to try and be the more consumer friendly option. And what that usually ends up meaning to them is cheaper parts, cheaper pieces that come together to allow more people to have access to a thing. Because the Stadia has not been an easy thing to get a hold of. As much as we were talking about the idea of the Stadia because Google's happy to give it out like candy, they are happy to give it out like candy to the people that are already giving them a bunch of money. So like I have not been shy about being part of like the Google ecosystem for years now, and that has only gotten bigger. I've talked about the number of different Google Chromes I have in the house, Google Nests, Google fucking speaker house shit. I've got light bulbs in this house literally connected to my Google.
So were you okay with the outage this morning?
Yeah, didn't even notice it. So like seriously, like that's the thing is like if Amazon had an outage, and I've had this experience, Amazon having an outage and the Amazon Echo's not working, like I lost that stuff for a day, right? But Google, I didn't even pick up on it here. Maybe by the time I woke up here in Mountain Time,
it was really an issue in the Eastern time zone. By the time I got to work today, it was working again. So
yeah, but so that idea is that like Google is happy to bring you in, but you've got to get beyond the velvet rope with Google, right? And that's but to their credit, and and also fuck them, you know what I mean? Like the idea that they can't be more open, they're a $1 billion company, is ridiculous. But then you have the Amazon route, where they're also a $1 billion company, and their solution to getting to more people in the door is to give them not as well-made materials, I will say. And you can see this even in the Amazon Fire Sticks. Like they are quick to put out the new one every few months, because if you really pay attention, these things are not lasting like the 3 years that technology really should, right? Like that sort of thing. So I'm just all of this is to say I'm not surprised that they came out with a cheaper alternative to the Stadia that is also cheaply made.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my one complaint about it, because it is what we thought Stadia was going to be, a Netflix for games. There's there is a library of at least 30 titles, and I say at least 30 titles because I haven't really delved into it. And there's a lot of crossover, it feels like, with Game Pass stuff, that whatever Microsoft has going for how they're licensing third-party stuff, Amazon somehow got in on that deal with those companies.
Interesting.
Which is nice, right? And that includes Way Forward, so games that we love on this show, like Shantae and River City Girls, are on there. As well as they've paired with Ubisoft, and if you're a Ubisoft Plus member, you have access to every Ubisoft game on Amazon Luna without additional cost. You just got to pay the Luna access fee, which at this time is only $5. And then they're saying that's for the beta, that it may go up, but honestly, I don't know if it's going to.
I mean, it will go up in some fashion. I mean, as we saw just this past week with Netflix going up yet another download for everybody. But you know, it is what it is. Right now, I'm willing to take these hits for this sorts of stuff, and I will not be surprised or disappointed in Amazon when they have to charge more than $5 to keep up that kind of service. Right. Because if that's what they can bring to the table, then sure, put a cheaper controller in my hand so that I can play more games. I'd be willing to make that compromise depending on what's available to me, and if you make more shit available to me, then the odds are better, right?
I mean, you say that, but my 510 thumbs have issues with these sticks. I can't imagine what your 610 thumbs are gonna feel like on
them. Yeah.
But that's the thing. And just the final thing on Amazon Luna is, like I said, River City Girls is on there. I played it, and of course that's going to be my judgment if it's any good. The only problem that there was any sort of stutter was in the bosses fights when so much is happening on screen.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty solid experience until it's really taxed. And all of that is important. All of that is important to know because my experience with Cyberpunk has been exclusively cloud related. Now, not via Amazon Luna, which I've talked about because I've been experiencing it, and I think that's what's driven me to be more connected to Stadia. But also, for $60, you could get Cyberpunk 2077 and a Stadia Premiere Kit. The same thing that you got. So a controller and a Chromecast. And
but
that's
to be clear, we're talking about a cloud-based digital-only version, right? Like,
right.
There's nowhere where I can go download that version that I own.
And that's nerve-wracking to me. But the reason why I was sold is I'm going to have something physical in my hand in the form of a controller and a Chromecast, which even if someday I lose Cyberpunk 2077, not if, when I lose Cyberpunk 2077, I'll still have some relic of the time that I owned it.
Yeah, and this sort of like the collector side of you for sure. Is it at least like a nice, like dirty yellow controller?
No, it's just
or anything
the white
like that?
one. It's exactly what you got. But the white controller is the only Stadia controller I don't have.
Oh, that's right, because you had like wasabi green or whatever the fucking Yeah.
So who knows? I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And maybe that one that releases will have some sort of color thing, because I'm not getting it until January.
Okay.
So who knows what's going to happen? But it was enough for me to say, you know what? For the price of the last controller to complete my Stadia collection of controllers, because there has to be some person who does it. Why not Devin Decker? I'll also get to play this game that admittedly I don't really have a lot of interest in. First of all, because the advertising for Cyberpunk 2077 really didn't tell you anything about the game.
No, I think that I don't disagree entirely with that. There's the problem is that I've actually gotten very invested in the Cyberpunk 2077 actual tabletop RPG, like the book and all that shit from like the 90s and stuff, because it's a fucking rad like tabletop game. It's first of all, it's the first tabletop game to ever be like invented and spearheaded by an African American dude, like, so like it's pretty big in that awesome, like sense. Yeah. But then on top of that, like I love that world. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, it is what it says on the tin. Like, it's cyberpunk and it's futurism and it's all this really good shit that like I just eat up with a fucking spoon. And so like I am really kind of into that world. The idea of like the class systems that they have are really cool. They've got the they've sorry, I was gonna say the Norman. That's not what it is. The Nomad. They've got the Nomad. You know, they've got like the cop stand-in. You can be like this really like basically terrible cop if you want to be. Like, they've got the over consumer. They've got the idea of like the guy that's hooked in and is basically one step away from uploading his consciousness to the cloud. Like, they've got all these different really interesting cyberpunk tropes that are then wrapped up in that really nice D&D package of like the ways in which you go into these encounters and the quote unquote dungeons and stuff like that. So, and then Johnny Silverhand is part of the history of that game. So when they introduced Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand, like, that is actually hugely impactful because it tells you what kind of story you're getting into, because he was basically like rock and roll, like Jesus meets Malcolm X type character when he was alive. Dun dun dun. Like that's the big thing about the game.
If you want to if you want to see the legends of Night City, all you got to do is take a trip to the cemetery. That's like the first thing they tell you in the game. Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, cool. This game's going to be fun.
So like in terms of story, that gave me one thing, right? The other thing that I'm a huge fan of is the Witcher games. So like, and the Witcher oeuvre, like the books, the show, you know, all the shit around it. Like, the ways in which CD Projekt Red has really kind of blown up with that series, and what they've done with that series. What I mean with that is like the respect with which they have paid that series through 3 games and God knows how much other material that they've had their hands in. And like, so knowing that is the way that they treated that franchise, knowing what I know about this franchise, I had a pretty decent idea of what Cyberpunk was going to be. So I'll be honest, a lot of the stuff that's coming out where people are like, it's so slow, I'm not shooting anything, I'm like, yeah, no, what? Yeah, of course you're not. What? Like, I guess there was a lot of people out there that thought this was going to be like GTA, and no, it's The Witcher. Like, it's slow paced. There's a lot of times where you resolve issues without ever like bringing a weapon to the fight, which is important. Like, that's key to the idea of what this world is and what you were trying to do in it. But anyway, but as somebody that maybe is not locked into all of that outside shit, I can definitely say that the advertisements didn't do anything except put Keanu Reeves in your face.
Right. And that's fine, but also it opens with a montage of cool things that your created character is doing, and it's like, it'd be cool if I were doing these cool things. Well, that looks like fun, huh? Oh, drug den. Oh. Like, no, okay, cool. That was just like an introduction. I
just get to watch. Yeah, I just get to, okay.
And then it takes you in, and you get to do a mission, and that mission is super gunplay heavy. Like, so it like the first mission that you actually do after the hey, I'm V, and I want to talk to you about giving the bartender some slack, is like real Call of Duty level, you have to shoot people stuff.
That's interesting, because the ways that some people have been talking about the early parts of that game, I would have never guessed that. So I mean, like, I'm almost glad to hear that. Like,
right.
But it sounds like what you're saying is it sets you up with an expectation.
Yeah, and I think that's why people then complain about it, because like, that's the expectation. And, you know, it's first person gunplay. It's like, and it was fun. Like, you actually had to take cover and do all this stuff. And then after that mission, you ride in a car for like 15 minutes and you can't do anything. Like, it's just driving, and then you're stopped by the police and you're like, oh, we're just going to get home. And
this reminds me a lot of Mass Effect, and my issues in time with that is because, like, on the one hand, like, I loved separately all of the like relationship stuff and the getting to know characters and digging into like the weird what's the word I'm looking for, like the weird crime like trees that were in that, and you could really like investigate something to the point where like you really figured out that there's a bigger conspiracy going on. And like, then there's also, I loved going through some of those like those on rail shooters moments where you're just going through like the bar and then you go into the back room and you're taking dudes out, but together it was so it was like a fucking like rubber band of
Yeah, it's a
just like
tonal
all
shift that you're
yeah,
not prepared
yeah,
for. It's a
yeah,
tonal whiplash, is what they call it.
and I could not I could never get over it. I've never finished a single Mass Effect game because as great as everybody always told me they were, I could not get into either part of it before the other one snapped back in.
Yeah. And luckily, after that whole 15-minute ride, and I know I'm being hyperbolic in that, but it feels like that. It does say when you're in a car, you can press the B button and skip the ride. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm fine with that. I know that I might miss out on like small character development stuff. Like I put ranch dressing on my burritos instead of sour cream. It's that same cooling factor, but with an extra kick. And it's like, oh, that's cool to know. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
As a man that does not care about story, like I can see.
Well,
why
like
that would
it's like
be more dark to you.
because like that's the type of stuff that you usually get in those moments is
Yeah.
things like that, not like.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm doing this is because my dad died. Oh, that's huge. That's like a character motivation. That probably should have been in main story content, not in the drive home.
I don't know. If a motherfucker tells me that he puts ranch on his burritos instead of sour cream, I start to side eye that dude for the rest of his life. So like, that tells me a lot about that crazy motherfucker.
But yeah, so like I know that this was not my style of game, but it's like I got it for free with a Stadia, and I'm okay with that. And I mean, I know that it's very similar to like, based on what my experience with them is, an Elder Scrolls game is sort of the thing that I can compare it to, because as I'm shooting with a handgun, I'm getting better at handguns. And like my handgun level went up, and I'm like, oh, cool, I can reload handguns faster. And like, that was fun. And, you know, the all cards on the table, I'm playing it like a hacker's freaking simulator.
Nice. Yeah, hell yeah, man. Do that shit.
I made my character look as close to Johnny Lee Miller as Dade Murphy as possible.
Oh, that's amazing.
To the fact that I'm like, check out my character to Dale, and she's like, oh, so you just made it hackers? And I'm like, yeah, you got it. That felt good. And it is, it's slow, but like, I'm weirdly invested in it. It is strange to me that I didn't get the proper heads-up display until 2 hours into the game. And that's not because of me. Like, that's just how the game doles out the information. So I can understand people who thought this was going to be a guns blazing Call of Duty style story being disappointed by that. But
yeah.
like,
and that is like low on the list of things that I'm hearing about it. It is just definitely one of the things that like that people are. It's the legitimate conversation that they are using to then justify some of the crazy ass stuff that's happening to like 1 out of every 50,000 people playing it. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like the numbers are a little bit smaller there, just based on some of the montages I have seen of glitches that you're talking about. But even then, like, we experience glitches in other games all the time. I don't know why this game is the one that everybody's losing their crap over. Like, I can look at a bunch of games that came out this year that had glitches. Heck, we played Avengers, the Kate Bishop taking aim storyline a week ago at this point, maybe 6 days, and the glitches in that were ridiculous. Dale was just the head at one point, and she's like, why aren't you giving me credit for the stuff that I'm doing? And I'm like,
every time Captain America would talk, it would just show me Hulk's crotch.
Yeah.
Every time it would go to the shot of what was supposed to be Steve talking to the group, it was just Hulk's crotch doing the weird I'm on the Zephyr dance that he does, where he's like shaking his crotch at the camera, and I'm like, I don't need to keep seeing this. Why am I still seeing this?
Yeah, like just bad stuff. And that game, that's 17 updates in, and they haven't fixed these problems.
Yeah, and I will say that I think where the Cyberpunk thing comes from is that this is a game that, no joke, was announced like a decade ago. There are people that are talking about how they first heard about this in their freshman year of high school, and they're treating themselves to it as like the present to themselves finishing college. Like they're like, yeah, I'm treating myself because I'm graduating in December, so I'm buying myself a PS5 and Cyberpunk, and I've been so excited for it since I started high school, and it's just like, that's good for you. And that puts it into a weird perspective. So like the amount of shit that it's getting for not being, for lack of a better word, is done, right, is because this is something that we've been promised, and it's been pushed and it's been pushed and it's been pushed, and then you hear all this shit nowadays about like crunch, like that fucking word just kind of ekes into everybody's brain, and it's just like, okay, you've pushed this thing for over a decade, you treated all of your people like shit to get it out to me, and this is the finished product. It's not even a game. Like, what the fuck were you thinking? And I think the thing is that they were thinking is ambition. They wanted a world. They wanted a universe in this game, not just a world. And it's unfortunate that like this is what you've got. I'm reminded so heavily of the shit that went on with like No Man's Sky, where like they basically hit a point where they were like, look, we either keep pushing our people to the moment where they fucking die in front of their computers, or we just get this game out there and then we just work on our own timetable after that. And so like they clearly made that decision, right, with Cyberpunk. And so I know what you're saying. Like, more people are experiencing issues than I'm probably giving it credit for.
Yeah.
But there's this thing where like there's a scale of issues, and like I get that a lot of people are getting glitches, like cars like floating 5 feet off the ground and like trees not popping in and stuff like that. And that's though that's unfortunate. It breaks immersion. I get that. But that's totally different than the people out there that are just like, yeah, every time I walk into a room, like I don't have pants on, and like it's affecting the ways that like NPCs are treating me and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that's weird. Oh, okay, like that's affecting gameplay. Like, oh yeah, my like it's not loading in ammo for me and shit like that. Like that's that's horrendous. But that's the kind of stuff where like I'm only hearing one or two people say those things. The stuff that I'm hearing more of and the stuff that I'm seeing in the montages are things just like every now and then in one of the car scenes you'll turn to the driver and that person will be like floating eyeballs instead of a head, or like when V goes to sleep, he weirdly sleeps facing his pillows for some reason.
Yeah, no, that happens, and I just like, that's not how people sleep, but it's the future. I can't speak for the future.
Sleep. Oh man, somebody pointed out that maybe what he's doing is actually taking his arms off before he goes to bed, and so your POV is just of his arms lying next to him in bed.
Wow, no, because you see his pillow. It's like he lays across his bed like a cat.
Yeah, it's real weird.
It's strange.
Yeah, and like that sort of stuff is definitely immersion breaking. Like I don't want to take that away from it. That is the legitimate part of that complaint. But to say that constitutes an unfinished game and that they shouldn't have released it is ridiculous, because that is exactly the kind of stuff that they can fix with patching, or I'll be honest, that you can just look past and move on.
I mean, they can fix it with patching, but as we saw from Werewolf Steve Rogers in the Kate Bishop thing, like Dale, when we were playing, he looked like his hair was coming through. It reminded me of when he was a werewolf in the comics, and I'm like, that's a cool thing, right? That's not an Easter egg, but it brought me some nostalgic fun. And I saw that when we were playing, because I looked over at her screen and her Captain America was wearing a different outfit than mine. Mine didn't have that problem, but hers did. And then literally every review that I read that included photos featured that exact scene, and not like the same screenshot, like different screenshots from that exact moment that we experienced in this house. And that was a little weird on a level, right?
I mean, like, I think I might have said on this show that I had that entire Hulk boss fight in slow motion, right?
Yeah.
Like where the very first room that you go into, it's more of a mini boss fight, and you have to like smash all of the equipment. It goes into slow motion whenever you do one of the like hyper kills or whatever the fuck they're called in Avengers.
Takedowns. They're called takedowns.
Yeah, whenever you do one of the takedowns, it goes into slow motion. And so I did that, and I did that at the moment where I think a cutscene was like attempting to start. And so what it basically did was when the cutscene was over, I was still in slow motion and continued to do the rest of that fight in slow motion, and it didn't leave that until I finished that mission and went back to the Quinjet. Like it was hilarious, and definitely something that like if it happened more often I'd be upset about. For the 10 minutes that I got to fucking ace that mission because everything was in slow motion so I could dodge everything, like it was kind of fun. Like it was stupid.
I bet you kind of felt like the Hulk in a way that rarely do I feel like the Hulk when I play that game.
I felt like Bruce Banner within the Hulk, just having to watch it happen. That's what it felt like. Like whenever Bruce talks about how he's not the one in control in those moments, I finally understood it.
That's immersion, man. That's glitch immersion, and that's the thing that apparently exists.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's that. But the reason why I bring up Amazon Luna and in the talk about Cyberpunk 2077 is that, you know, blessed RNGesus or whatever it is, I haven't experienced any of those issues. And I believe it was your brother who brought up the fact that it looks like the Stadia version is the most stable build of the game, which weirdly makes a lot of sense when you consider all of the computing of Google is behind running that game for me.
And it's running the same version essentially for everybody. It's not like everybody has a different thing. Like there's a lot more coming together on the Stadia for the community playing on the Stadia than there is on any other system.
Right, because it doesn't matter that, like, oh, you have a bad graphics card that's not allowing this one thing to happen, and that's why you're seeing eyeballs.
Yeah, right.
Like, so I haven't had any of those issues, but I also bring that up because I am playing on a Windows 7 version of Chrome, and that doesn't seem like any sort of issue, right? But Amazon Luna also requires the Chrome browser in order to play it, but if you're on Windows 7, you can't use it. You have to be on Windows 10. And I don't know what the difference is between those two things.
Well, so I know that there's a big cutoff between 7 and 8.1. So a lot of things will require nowadays that you be on 8.1 or later is like fucking shorthand for the Windows stuff that you need to be on, because Windows 7 was a mess and Windows 8 built off of 7, and they were trying so hard to fix 7, and 7 was so broken. People think 8 was the broken one, and 8 wasn't the broken one. 8 was trying to fix 7. 7 was so broken that they were forced to go back to the drawing board after 8 came out and say, like, we can't even fucking do 9. We need to take this down and start all over, and we need to work through till we just put out Windows 10. Like, that's how fucked 7 was. So in a weird way, like, I get it. I'm surprised that they force you onto Windows 10. I would have thought they would have done the 8.1 or later that the rest of the tech world currently, like, adheres to.
Right. But that's the thing, is that, like, I know that I am using an outdated, initially very broken, semi-stable operating system. And the fact that still, through Google Stadia, I am not seeing any of the myriad of glitches that I have seen online from Cyberpunk 2077 really impresses me.
That's actually really interesting, because, like, knowing that and the idea of, you know, cloud gaming being the future of gaming, it's kind of it's a tick in that column. Like, if this is a pro of, we can make sure that the game itself is running on an extremely stable, most up-to-date system at all times. I don't need to update my PC. I don't need to go out there and like fucking put like blue lights and cooling units all up in my shit in order to be able to play Cyberpunk. Like, I can just have my shitty system, but also then still play these really high-end games. Like, that's actually a very appealing sell to me.
Yeah. It was appealing to me too. I didn't really think about it until I woke up this morning and I read reviews, right? Because I just saw all of the noise over the weekend, but I figured that, like, by Monday morning it'll be filtered out. And a lot of it was still that noise. A lot of it was still the people saying this, to the fact that, you know, CD Projekt Red came out and said, "We're sorry we shipped an unfinished game."
Yeah,
like, that statement was very strange.
It was. I don't think they should have done it. You know, like, what, you know, take this for what you will. I'm a consumer. I am in no way like a developer or marketer or any of that. But, like, the ways in which they made that apology and, like, we're going to issue refunds for the game because of how broken it is essentially like the oeuvre of that entire statement. It just felt like no, you guys are giving in to a loud, like, vocal minority, but
it's
like
a majority at this point, man. Like,
it's not a majority of players, though. That's the thing, is that it really is not a majority of players. It is still only one in so many people. It's not for every 20 people playing 24 have an issue. Like, that's just not happening. Like, there's definitely a number of people that are just fine playing this game on all systems. I have heard people on PS4s come into conversations and be like, "What's going on?" Like I've been having a great time with this game, and like, sure, some silliness happens, but it's no different than like every time a fucking Elder Scrolls game or a Fallout game comes out. I mean, like Fallout 76 is still broken up its ass, and there's people that defend that too, I guess. But like there is definitely a number of people that we are not hearing because nothing's wrong. You know what I mean? Like everybody that we are hearing talking about how broken this game is all of the people having these issues. And I think some of these people are really pushing these issues in ways that are not fair. So like I think there is a smaller sect of people having an issue with this game than the world currently thinks there is, but obviously it was enough to make them come out, CD Projekt Red come out and say something about it. So like I just, it sets a bad precedent, because is this what every game is going to be now? If it doesn't come out picture perfect, are we going to demand this kind of shit from every developer? Because like games are going to stop getting made. People are going to be afraid to take chances. We are basically not allowing these creators to make mistakes, and that's actually not fair.
So it's a dangerous. First of all, this is just good advice for life. Admissions of guilt are not something you should be free flowing with. Like if you don't have to admit guilt, if you don't have to take culpability for something, you probably shouldn't. And CD Projekt Red, reading that statement, they're being like, we were bad, we did something wrong, we shipped an unfinished game. Like, those are not things that you should have admitted. Even if, like, everybody's saying it and calling for you to do it, that's not the way to quiet people. Because once you admit guilt, you're kind of guilty forever. Yeah. And I know that's like, that might sound strange, but I'm reminded of court cases where people like plea out and just say that they're guilty to stuff. And then because they've already admitted guilt, they're liable for higher charges and deeper punishments. When really, yeah, I assaulted the guy. I pushed him and he fell down. And I will admit the guilt for that. Like, I won't even fight for the fact that he attacked me and all that. I'll take my culpability and I'll say I'm guilty. But then that guy who fell down, it ends up that, you know, he had a bleed in his brain and he ends up dying. Because you just said you're guilty, you're now on the hook for murder.
Yeah, and that's
and I know that's an extreme case.
No, I was going to say that's a very clean version, because what we actually know is that a lot of people that admit guilt in this country usually are admitting to things they don't understand and are usually coerced into worse charges than they deserve. Like,
yeah,
and I think
that's true.
Not, and I think that that's more of a telling thing, right? Is that the more that companies come out and say, like, you know, my bad, we did this wrong, we should have done right by this. Like, that's great. It's fine. When a company fucks up, taking responsibility for a fuck up is great. But what you say is like, we understand the game is not in a state that you expected. That you expected.
Yeah.
Like we can get there. You don't say we shipped an unfinished game. That's a very definitive statement. And they said that.
Yeah,
you don't say you can have a refund, because that's a very definitive statement. Like the second you're giving money back to somebody, you are basically admitting that like you did the biggest of boo-boos. And it's like the boo-boo so big that you have to reset to zero, essentially. And I just don't think that that's what's going on here, because like you said, you're playing that game without issue. There are plenty of people out there coming out of the woodwork now and being like, I'm having issues, but those problems are not like killing the game for me. Half of the reviews that were in place, like at the journalism level, so like review copy level, admitted like, look, there's going to be some shit in this game that's going to be janky, but like it is still a playable game. Like we knew that was coming. And to hold CD Projekt Red to a standard that the game should not have come out, basically what we're saying is we're telling them you shouldn't have released the game. So what should they have done? Delayed again? Because what the fuck would that have looked like? You know what I mean? Like
I mean, it's one of those situations though where if they had delayed again, like I don't know, people would have been disappointed. I'm reminded of that Shigeru Miyamoto quote that a bad game is bad forever. A delayed game like has time to improve. Like you shouldn't release a bad game. Like if you need more time, you should ask for it.
Sure, but how many chances does a company get? Because as I said, this is something people have been waiting for forever.
I mean, it was supposed to come out in September, right? Like at the beginning. I mean, and I bring up September because Avengers came out in September, and we're in the same boat. Like, it was Avengers, and then it was going to be Cyberpunk a week later. And, you know, I think the other thing is they're like, you can get a refund now, but we want you to wait because we're going to make it better. If I'm given the option for the refund now, I'm going to take the refund now.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you do make it better down the line, I can probably buy it again. And
yeah, what's the benefit in me staying bought in on this now that you've basically admitted to me that it's not working right now?
Yeah, like, and I'll wait and I'll let some other schmuck tell me if it's worth buying down the line. Probably used from a GameStop or online for less than the new price tag, right? Like, I end up, there's a net gain to me if I get the refund now.
I mean, even if you're buying, direct from developer, like Witcher 3 is currently available for $15 on the PS4.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, you know what I mean? Like, wait long enough, and like you could even buy directly from them again and still support the developer you like, but at the same time, you're also not giving them the full amount that this game maybe should have gotten early on. I don't know. I mean, like, it's a weird side for me to land on in this case where I feel like CD Projekt Red is really kind of getting like fucking lit up, but I think that they are getting the brunt of some feelings that people have been having about a lot of shit. I feel like they are really taking the hit for things like Avengers, where Avengers came out and it is not the game that they wanted it to. I can guarantee you that game is not the game the developers wanted it to be.
I mean, minute one, you know that. Like, that was supposed to be a single-player experience. There's no doubt in my mind. The single-player missions where it is just one person, where you cannot bring in other players, and they're few and far between, but like almost every Avenger has one like that. Those feel great. And that seems like what Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix likes to do. And I feel like they're like, oh, but it's Avengers. Everybody loves Marvel right now. $1 billion at the box office. We need a always-on service game, and this is the one to do it with.
We need a Destiny, and this is already in the works. Turn this into my Destiny is essentially what happened with that game.
Yeah.
And like and it shows, because you're right that the single player experience in that game is the better experience. The problem is that to get to the single player experience, it's so wrapped up in all of the multiplayer bullshit that like I couldn't even tell you like how to get to the Hulk storyline mission versus the fucking Avengers storyline versus the Kamala story. Like, it's all fucking nonsense on screen. I can't read any of it. I can't understand how to play that game. I'm going to admit that to you now, that one of my biggest issues with Avengers, and the reason that I have yet to finish that game, is because every time I turn it on, I'm completely lost in the UI. I don't know where to go to get anything done. I want to just play that game, put on silly costumes, and beat shit up as different heroes. That's what I want to do. And there is so much between me and that when I turn that game on that I just turn it off. And I think that that's one of the things that, like, I think that attitude, right, and that feeling and the way that we've seen that being handled, I think that has, like, built up a lot of resentment in people. And I think that you add to that a lot of other resentments this year, a lot of the issues with, like,
Last of Us 2,
oh my god, like the feelings people had about that game and the way that the story was done, and the ways that people have been feeling about how games constantly are coming out and they feel unfinished, and like day one patches are not being considered in reviews, and now reviews are talking about one game and then we're being told that game isn't even the game that the consumer is going to get. Like there's a lot of smaller issues that are piling on top of the clear issues that I think Cyberpunk definitely has. And so I think what's really happening is that they're making up, they're giving out an admission of guilt for like the industry. They like as if CD Projekt
sword though, and I don't know if falling on the sword in this scenario is the best option to take.
Of course. Yeah. I clearly don't think it is. Yeah, man. Yeah. I agree.
And another thing on this thing is all of that stuff that you just talked about, and we're going to be asked to pay $10 more for new games in the 9th console generation.
Yeah.
Like, it's $70 for a game now. And I have to tell you, I'm not going to do that. Like, I always talk about I'm going to wait until the price goes down. $70 for a game that close to $100 like cost to get a game, once you talk about tax and everything else involved, I am willing and able now to wait for price drops.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's too much to me when I know that a game loses its value after 2 weeks. And if you wait even longer than that, will eventually be $15.
Yep.
It's
I can't even begin to touch that one because I'll be honest, I have maybe paid full price for 2 games this whole year, and that's not true if I consider Nintendo stuff. I have to remember to include the Switch in this, but as far as PlayStation goes, I have only paid full price for about 2 games this year. Everything else I waited on, but yeah, man, I have no I have no desire to drop $70 on a chance nowadays. It needs to be something that I've either played before. Like if they want to get real heavy into the demo market again and like put shit in people's hands, I'll be more inclined to buy a game. Or if they're gonna really lean heavy into the shit you get with it, like it's $70, but you also get like, you know, a skin pack or some shit with it. Like maybe that's what'll get me. I don't know. But right now it's not.
$70 base game, $90 for a deluxe edition. That's too much. It's just too much. And like, thank goodness Cyberpunk wasn't a part of it in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, because on the one hand, if it were, we could end the $70 for new game argument before it even gets up out of bed.
Right.
But in another way, like that could burn down the industry.
Yeah.
And in ways
I mean,
that
as it
they're
is.
not. Yeah.
I mean, as it is, the game is going to change things. I mean, like I'm not kidding. Like this admission of guilt on their hands is one of the industry. It's not just them that is basically admitting this in this moment, because that's not how people are seeing this issue. They're seeing this as an industry issue between the attitude about crunch, which is a completely legitimate.
Awful. I haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2 because of the crunch. That's a game that I was looking forward to as soon as I finished Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
Like,
but like that is a totally legitimate thing.
Yeah.
But like essentially what we're telling people is in that case, we want to see less games per year, and and those games basically need to be guaranteed hits to us. And those are 2 very dangerous things to tell the video game industry, because they never make the right move when this kind of shit happens. So we'll see, man. We'll see what it does to the industry, but what basically happened with Cyberpunk is going to change the way that the industry approaches like large, ambitious games.
Right. And I think, just to put a bow on this, the real reason why it's coming out, why this is the fire, is because CD Projekt Red up to this point was that shining example. They could do no wrong in the eyes of a lot of people. So when the only person that you're holding up to a standard becomes like everybody else, that's real hard to swallow.
Yeah, I know. And what it is people have got to learn that the standard they were holding them to was a pretty impossible one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty impossible standard to treat their people well, make a good game, and give it to me when I want it. You could pick 2, right? It's fast,
you know cheap, or quick, cheap, good, right?
Yeah, quick, cheap, or well made, and pick 2, right? Like,
Oof. Well, that was a trip. Let's talk about Christmas specials.
Yeah, let's talk about Christmas, man. It's that time of the year. We're getting real close to the big day. In fact, I think we've only got one more episode on the docket beforehand, right?
Well, that and a very special episode that's gonna drop on the 24th, so you can get up with your family and have a fun time listening to the Stay Report.
Yeah, man. But you watched a troubling one, huh?
I watched a real troubling one, especially because it's from a group that has delivered an exceptional Christmas episode before. It was a follow-up Christmas special, and it's from DuckTales 2017.
Oh, okay.
And in the first Christmas special, really nice tie-in to Mickey's Christmas Carol, where, you know, Scrooge McDuck is the Ebenezer Scrooge of that, and he's visited by the ghosts. And in the very first season of DuckTales, it was revealed that, maybe it was the second season, but yeah, it was revealed that Scrooge is visited by those ghosts every year on Christmas.
Right.
And that they just kind of have a party. Like,
yeah, now they just hang out with
yeah,
him.
like we had this good time, and and then it's revealed that the Ghost of Christmas Past is crazy and became a Wendigo because of course
it was just such a great weird twist in that episode.
like, but it's really good. Like it's got a lot going, but then it ends on this sort of ominous note about Santa Claus, and like, we don't say that name in this house.
Setting up a very, very interesting dynamic between Scrooge and Santa, and for future, it's a very good foreshadowing.
Right. And that's all it's ever going to be, is very good foreshadowing. At least to me. Everyone's mileage is going to vary, because the Christmas special in this third and what has been revealed to be final season of DuckTales 2017, and for a time I thought that this was going to be how they ended the series, until it was revealed that there are 6 more episodes, and I breathed a huge sigh of relief that this is not where they're ending it, because there have been too many shows that have ended on a Christmas special, and like, that's a terrible way to end a series. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, for sure, because so much can happen in a Christmas special that is so out of canon or so out of character. Yeah, it's not the way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's also a wrap up to the series and it's set at Christmas, that doesn't bother me. Doctor Who has done that a couple of times.
Yeah, but even then, like, they are phenomenal one parts, but like, in the larger context of the seasons they were before or after, they don't always fit as well.
They don't jive the way that you want them to.
Yeah, I would argue that the only worst way to end a series is a clip show episode.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I'm trying to think of the worst way to end a series is with an episode that is just an episode.
And there's no up or down to it.
Yeah,
like, it's just another episode.
That was just an episode of the show. Bye forever. Like, yeah, like I as much as I hate when a show ends on a cliffhanger and they have to insert, Sam Beckett never made it home, and you're just like, oh, that's sad. Thanks, Quantum Leap. Quantum Leap. I believe that Sam Beckett is currently Dwayne Pride in NCIS Los Angeles, and by that I mean New Orleans. I do that all the time because LA stands for Louisiana in my mind.
I mean, I think the weirder thing is, like, if Sam is just continuously going through space, I mean, through time, I mean, does he not eventually just become everyone at some point? Have we not all been Sam Beckett at some point in our lives?
I'm Sam Beckett during this episode. I'm glad that you figured that out. That's why I finally leave. That you figuring it out is how I get out of here.
Goodbye.
What's going on, Sejan? Where are we?
So we were talking about the DuckTales Christmas.
Oh, okay, cool. That's weird. I really wanted to bring that up. So this season they address the feud between Scrooge McDuck and Santa Claus.
Okay.
And weirdly they make Scrooge McDuck the villain. Which brings me to a question that seems appropriate on the day that Joe Biden was elected president by the Electoral College. Do you believe that Scrooge McDuck would be a Trump supporter?
No, I don't think that he'd vote. I think he'd be one of those.
Well, he couldn't vote because he's not a citizen of America. He is of Scottish descent. Wow, way to just skirt that question with beautiful logic.
I know, but even if he was in the position where somebody handed up a piece of paper and said, "We will now allow you to vote," I still think he would not participate. I feel like he is. I think it's a beautiful fault of Scrooge that he forgets that he's part of a community sometimes, and not all the time, because it is revealed that he owns like a lot of what's the name of it? Yeah, Duckburg. Like,
life is like a hurricane. Because that's how you remember.
But he and like, so this is not an all the time thing for him. It's beautiful in those moments when he remembers that he has the ability to be part of other people's lives. But I think that that's like a big story with the 2017 DuckTales, right? Is him feeling disconnected from his family and being brought back into it, and feeling like he is now part of that family again. And I think that is the heroic flaw of him, is he has this ability to be above things. So like things like politics, I think he would not include himself in, but sometimes it does also alienate him, which I think is like, I think he would be the kind of person to not get involved. I think that he would definitely not be a Trump supporter if anything. But on top of that, I feel feel like he would just be he'd be Elon Musk. He'd be like that guy that also gives a bunch of people shit about Biden too. And it's just like, yeah, we get it. Like, that's not the conversation we're having right now, though.
Yeah. I don't believe that he would support Trump because Trump did not earn his money. Like, that's a big sticking point for Scrooge McDuck, is that he wants people to have worked for what they have in this world. And you take one look at probably a pig in universe, right? Like, I feel like it would be, he'd be like Hoggled Trump or something like that.
Yeah.
He would have no respect for him because he does not work for his riches. He was kind of given it and then just lives the easy life and squanders it.
And he's bad with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even like he does any good investing with it.
Right.
And I mean, like, I don't mean good as in like kind. I mean good as in like good at business.
Yeah, he's not
terrible at that.
Right,
Yeah.
which all you have to do is look at Scrooge's relationship to someone like Flintheart Glomgold to be like, Glomgold earned his money, but he's very bad with his money, and I don't respect that either.
Exactly.
Like these arguments that like it makes me sad that Scrooge McDuck would be a Trump supporter. I don't think Scrooge McDuck thinks about taxes at all. I would not be surprised if the money bin is declared some sort of embassy so that it's not technically on Duckburgian soil, and thus not.
I think he's willing to pay his taxes, and he doesn't feel like, I don't think he feels like it's him being cheated in any way.
Yeah.
Like, we can tell from the ways in which he does have those moments where he suddenly remembers he's part of this community and like supports Duckburg and keeps it safe and all this other stuff. Like, I think it'd be clear that paying your taxes would come part and parcel with also saving everybody's lives. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
He fights like otherworldly threats all the time. He gets community. He doesn't get it on a personal level, but on like the grander scheme of things level, Scrooge McDuck kind of gets it.
We live in a society.
That's why he doesn't like the Beagle Boys, because they seek to rip down society.
And I think that that's also clear in that everything that he does, he does make sure that it's legal. He's very proud of the fact that everything that he does is on the up and up, right? And so, like, I think he'd be very proud to pay taxes because that is just another feather in his cap. Like, to say, like, I do everything right.
I got a Zach Morris timeout right now. Do you think that they put feathers in their caps? And if they do, is that like started as a way to show that you have defeated your enemy?
Oh my God! How many ducks?
It's like wearing their skin.
Yeah. No, man, because I think that it would be like somebody having a human hair doll. Creepy, but not unheard of.
They eat chicken. They eat chicken in the DuckTales universe.
That's right.
They also eat hamburgers, and like there are anthropomorphic cows. Like, I don't like to think a lot about that. Also, they've shown like Pluto ducks. That's the way that I'm going to describe it. Because in one episode they showed them feeding ducks bread, and there was a space alien with them, and they were like, "This is weird." Like, it was fun. But okay, so back to this episode. So it turns out Scrooge McDuck, because he's a hustler, is selling coal door to door in like the height of winter, like hundreds of years ago, because also Scrooge McDuck is an immortal creature of strangeness. Like, they've just made him this, he will never age or die.
Yeah, exactly. He will live forever.
So it's like hundreds of years ago, and he's going door to door selling coal, and he meets up with Santa Claus, who was also going door to door selling toys. And everybody is cold, they're freezing, and it's like, it's all right, because Scrooge McDuck, he'll deliver you your coal in time for Christmas morning, which is also strange, because that means that like a Christ duck has been born. Because
there is a savior duck that we are all yep, okay.
Yeah, so like a Christmas exists, right? And Scrooge is like, I can't do that. And then, Santa Claus is like, we'll do it together. And they go into business together selling coal, right? And that's fine, because Scrooge McDuck works to make his millions, right? The reason why Scrooge is so rich, and Will all last week kept asking me who the 10 richest fictional characters are. And like, at the end of the day, it's always Scrooge McDuck. There's no fictional character richer than Scrooge McDuck.
I mean, I think like canonically,
Like
like Scrooge
that's
has to be. Yeah, like it has it defines his character.
yeah.
That even in fictional realms, he is still the richest
But then
thing in
the
the world.
issue
Yeah.
is that like Glomgold is the third richest fictional character. And I'm like, well, if we're going to include Glomgold, that like every character in the DuckTales canon would probably be the top 10 because everybody has like just a little bit less money than Scrooge McDuck, and that is why they hate him so. I want to be as rich as McDuck, and it's impossible because, you know, plot armor. What are we talking about? Oh, okay. So Scrooge starts a coal company.
So he goes into business with Santa.
With Santa
Yeah,
Claus.
he goes into business with Santa.
And,
yeah.
you know, because he's Scrooge McDuck, he knows all sorts of magical, mystical things. And he's like, so we have to make good on your promise, Santa Claus, to be able to deliver coal to everybody in the world by Christmas morning. So we need to find a magic relic called the Feliz Navi Diamond, which is in the Cascabellis Caverns.
You're waiting for me to react to these, and I am just in stunned silence.
Because it's awesome. Also because all this information is from a Spanish journal. So I'm like, of course that would be what they're called from a Spanish explorer. It was just so happy. So they had to go get the Feliz Navi Diamond in order to it freezes time for one day every year so that they can go everywhere to deliver the coal to people, and they are delivering coal, and it is not for free. It is a service. Like, you get an invoice with the coal and people pay for it, and Santa Claus is fine with that, and Scrooge is fine with it because it's a fair product and he's doing the work, right? He believes that if you do the work, you should get compensated for the work, and that's all fine. And they use Santa Claus's toys to distract the guardian of the Feliz Navi Diamond. And they get the Feliz Navi Diamond, and they go into business, and they're having a great time. You know, Scrooge and Santa coal industry. And then one winter, Santa Claus is like, so I was thinking, instead of charging for the coal, we could just give it to people for free on Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. And Scrooge is like, well, why would we do that? Like, it's our busiest day of the year. It's where we make all of our money. People are happy to see it. We're not charging exorbitant fees. Like, that's one of the reasons that people enjoy it, is because we could be charging them more, but we're charging them a fair price for the product that they're getting. And Santa's like, yeah, but like, people should feel good on Christmas. We can call it a promotion and make people happy. And Scrooge is like, that's stupid, Santa Claus. That's a stupid plan. You might as well just deliver your toys for free every Christmas. And Santa goes, well, I will. And he steals the Feliz Navi Diamond from Scrooge McDuck and uses it now in perpetuity to deliver toys across the world. Because more important than a warm house on Christmas is a warm heart on Christmas.
I mean, so I can't tell if you're being extremely nice to the description of Scrooge in this episode, or if they fail to really nail that point. Because it does sound like from your description that perhaps Scrooge is not really all that bad for what he wants to do.
No, like that's the thing. Well, of course I'm shipping Scrooge in this, right? I am Team McDuck from now into perpetuity. I use that phrase too many times, and I apologize.
I believe the kids say stan. You're standing him.
I simp him, baby. I don't even know what that means. I'm in love with Scrooge McDuck. No, I'm not. That'd be weird. But no.
I believe simping means that you subscribe to Scrooge's OnlyFans, but anyway.
Oh, I do. I do subscribe to his OnlyFans. It's him in gold in the bin. I don't know how they get the lighting that good, because you would imagine it'd be some reflective issues off the gold coins, right?
Oh my Lord.
But yeah, so that's the whole backstory of the Scrooge and Santa feud. So now Santa Claus comes in and he's like, I broke my leg, Scrooge McDuck, you need to do my toy deliveries this year. And the boys are super excited because, oh my God, Santa Claus is real, and for the first time ever, he's visiting our house. And he gives toys to Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and Scrooge is like, you're giving them mindless baubles that they will break and they will never use them again. And what does that teach them about hard work? Like, you know, the Scrooge McDuck rhetoric, basically. I want you to work in this world. And so Scrooge says, I'm going to help you, right? Because I don't want to disappoint the children in the world. And you being hurt, that's a stupid reason for them not to get Christmas. But this is it. We're done. I don't want to have to defend my house from you anymore, and I want you to forget that we ever knew each other. And Santa agrees to that. Actually, Santa offers that. Like, we'll be done forever. Scrooge is like, okay. And I'm going to take Webby with me, because Webby is the only one who's not buying into the propaganda of Polar Bear Santa Claus. Because she also is like teammcduck.com. So they go on their little mission, and, you know, Scrooge is doing the deliveries, and it's so stupid because Santa does it in alphabetical order instead of by geographical location. So he's so inefficient using the magic of the Feliz Navi diamond.
That is upsetting. That is legitimately upsetting. I mean, I imagine it's also rubbing Webby the wrong way.
Yeah, well, Webby's like, why are we going? We were already here earlier, and he's like, yeah, but I do it in alphabetical order. And Webby's like, well, that's stupid. Even though, like, Webby's kind of buying into it when she sees just how happy and jolly Santa Claus is in real life. And, like, so that's, like, a whole thing, too, where she's like, have I been worshiping a false idol in Scrooge McDuck my entire life? There's so many layers to this Christmas special that is only 22 minutes long. I've already talked about it longer than the episode. I'm aware of that.
It sounds to me like your real issues with this episode is you are such a Scrooge fan that the fact that they dared to really dive into this flaw of his,
I haven't even mentioned the flaw, and I'm going to mention the flaw now, right? Scrooge McDuck, rather than delivering toys, has been leaving boxes of coal with invoice for the people to pay for the coal.
So, like, they do all of this delivery, and then they find out that no toys were delivered.
Then Santa's like, "Why is the sack still full?" And he's like, "Oh no, Scrooge McDuck screwed me." So Scrooge, you know, he delivers to a little Cindy Lou Who stand-in, right? She's a little pig girl, and she gets the coal and with the invoice, and she's like, "Oh," and she makes a doll out of the coal, right? And it's like, okay, and she's like. And he's like, no, you burn it. You burn the coal and it'll warm you up. And she's like, I couldn't burn Colette. And it's like this thing where Scrooge sees, oh my God, sometimes getting a gift is important. But it's only 1 hour till Christmas morning. How will we ever deliver all of the toys? My heart has grown 3 sizes. And it's like, basically what you did was sell out the characterization of Scrooge McDuck for this one episode. And it just hurt. And also, like, he did that, and I'm like, kind of good for you, Scrooge McDuck. That's a real fuck you to Santa Claus.
Yeah. Okay, so you're just Team Scrooge.
I'm just Team Scrooge. That's, like, the real thing. I don't like that Scrooge was a villain in, like, this thing that, like, and he was a villain in a way that, like, I would never imagine Scrooge McDuck to be a villain. Based on the fact that...
Well, so this goes to what I was saying earlier, though, is that Christmas specials really do kind of stand out of time and canon for a lot of these shows. And they allow characters to do things that they would not normally do, and for time to exist in a way that it normally wouldn't exist. You know, like, think about, like, the fact that every show, Bob's Burgers, is a great perpetrator of this, and I love them for it, where the kids have had 1,000 Christmases, and they're still the same age. They've had 1,000 birthdays and 1,000 Halloweens, and they've never aged, right? Like, Simpsons is like another prime example of this. So, like, but that's okay because it's a Christmas special. We don't care. It stands out of time. And so I think you just kind of have to approach it like that, is that it's a Christmas special that really just kind of does remove itself from the true story of the Scrooge that we know. Because I don't think it's out of character necessarily for Scrooge to behave this way. It just seems out of character within the context of where he's at with his family now. Like, I feel like the Scrooge that we now know would not have done this, but maybe the Scrooge that we first met might have.
Yeah, I think that's it. But I think what you're talking about is being out of time. This is something like, this is a canonical follow-up to an earlier Christmas episode that, like, they did a very good job of saying, this is obviously canon. Like, this happened. Like, you need to understand that this happened.
Yeah, they do such a strong thing of laying the foundation for it to be part of the thing. For him to misbehave like this is just kind of unappealing.
Right, and there's a greater arc in this 3rd season of DuckTales where they're searching for the lost mysteries of the world, and the Feliz Navi diamond is one of them. So like it ties into that larger arc as well. So like it would be fine if it distanced itself and Scrooge acted this way, but like trying to make it canonical with everything else that's going on, it was a lot of gymnastics for my mind to make. Also, then everybody had to help with the delivery of the presents in order to do it. And also, Webby's like, well, let's do it geographically, you stupid. You could be done with this in freaking 3 hours with the magic thing that you have. But no, you're Santa Claus, and you gotta go by alphabetical order. You have a list, and you've checked it twice.
Is this Devin declaring war on Santa?
I mean, like, let's be honest, right? If there was a Christmas special, right, and Devin Decker were the star, the story of that Christmas special would be Devin Decker fighting against what he has deemed propaganda Claus. Because he met the real Santa Claus when he was younger, and he was not a jolly old white man. That is just commercialism trying to sell you on an idea of Christmas, when the real Santa is someone very different. So every Christmas, I would be angry at everybody buying the propaganda of this fake Santa, who is more about commercial goods rather than peace, joy, and love for one another.
Propaganda Claus. I don't know if there's much more we could do that's gonna be better than that, Dev.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. You could talk about the Lego Star Wars special, but I think I'm glad I brought up Propaganda Claus. That's a belief of mine for a long time.
The Lego Star Wars special should get its due, and it is the kind of special that can get its due in May as much as it can tonight.
Oh, so that's exciting.
As much as I will take the opportunity, since you brought it up, to say definitely check it out. A couple of other specials that we've run into this year that have kind of warmed my heart in ways that Bad Vent was not necessarily supposed to. We had a little bit of a mix up because Albert the Christmas Tree, which was available earlier this year on Hulu, because Nickelodeon was like all in on Hulu a while back. It seems that they have kind of dialed back a lot of the Nickelodeon stuff on Hulu, so Albert the Christmas Tree was no longer available. So we had to kind of scramble that night to put something on. And we put on the small one, which is a weird Disney classic to dive into. I do encourage people to check out. The other weird one that we ended up checking out because we had to do some maneuvering because another one wasn't available. God, I'm losing track of them now. It's been so long. I'm so deep in it. But we ended up checking out Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Have you seen that one, Dev?
Actually, last year, maybe 2 years ago, I went and I watched it on the big screen. They did it for like the first time ever. They showed it in theaters, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, and they paired it with the Bells of Fraggle Rock episode, which is like one of my favorite Christmas stories because the Fraggles don't believe in Christmas, which is fine because they're Fraggles.
Because they're Fraggles. I'm going to get you, Fraggle.
I'm the Fraggle.
I love Fraggle Rock, but that's such a great that's a great way to experience it because it's one of those ones that I feel like everybody should experience. It's not necessarily one that I feel like I could recommend like every year, like guaranteed to everybody. So if you get the opportunity to make a special event out of it, that is definitely the way to do it.
Yeah, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas is super important. I mean, it's just the gift of the Magi, like so many things are. The O. Henry story has inspired Christmas stories for generations to come.
Yeah. But Emmett Otter it's the gift of the Magi, but it's wrapped up in this really beautiful, like folksy Americanism, which is weird because it comes from the Henson Company purely working out of their like Henson workshop. And that anybody that knows the history of them knows that they're mostly a UK based property.
Operation,
But I think that actually comes through in that it's through a very folksy lens that is very much over the top in a lot of ways. But the way that it's placed in like this Depression era Americana like town is very it's very beautiful. Like you don't see many like Christmas specials that purely so defiantly like go against the idea of commercialism. Like the whole thing is about how they have no money and they're striving to buy each other just one gift, and then they don't even get to do that in the end. Spoiler alert, but don't worry, there's another happy ending instead that like I legit don't want to ruin for anybody that hasn't seen it. Like check it out because man, like the music is also just something that hits just right for me. So yeah, so like we've had a couple of really kind of nice surprises that have kind of shown up in Bad Vent this year, and mostly it's been because our planned ones were just so bad that like the world did not want to let us see them this year.
That's insane. That's insane when things like that intervene
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that you can't see it. You know what? If you're looking for another Bad Vent, Frosty Returns. You
Oh,
ever
like
watched the weird sequel to Frosty
the
the
weird sequel to
Snowman?
Frosty. Yes, I did a Frostathon one year where we did Frosty the Snowman, Frosty Returns, and then there's a weird claymation one where Frosty shows up with Rudolph, where like
Frosty
Rudolph.
and Rudolph's Christmas in July.
Yeah,
And
where it's claymation version of that Frosty, and I kind of love that one.
I love that one. I think that one's great. But what I found, because Frosty the Snowman was on Saturday, like at 10 p.m., and I'm like, I'm just going to throw you on Frosty the Snowman, because it's been forever since I've watched you. And then they followed it up with Frosty Returns. And the real shock to my system is that Frosty Returns came out in 1992. Within our lifetimes.
Man, that is weird.
Yeah.
That is really weird.
Well, it's really
Yeah.
weird because yeah, 92. It feels like Rugrats too because it's Mark Mothersbaugh who did the music. So it's so much like proto Rugrats background stuff.
Weird.
And John Goodman is Frosty, which is also crazy. But Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July came out in 1979.
That's really weird.
And it's really weird because I always think of it as Frosty the Snowman, Frosty Returns, and then Christmas in July. But no.
Chronologically, yeah. Yeah, so there's definitely some ones to check out, and we were very open when we first started this. We were like, do your own thing, like see, like just experience Christmas this year, because there's a lot of people that just don't know what to do themselves. They spend this time of the year going to see family. They spend this time of the year hanging out with people and going to Christmas parties and Hanukkah parties and season parties. And I mean, are you guys doing the Festivus this year or what?
I mean, Festivus is always like we share our grievances, and that's fun. I have the poll up; I can see it from right here. But there's not going to be a solstice this year.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom is trying to do like a virtual solstice drinking with friends, like if you want to stop in that way. I'm not even sure where that went. She just said that that's how she's going to try to do it. But I don't know where that's going. But like, no, like the big parties that this house is known for, none of them have happened this year. Yeah. And it's strange to think of it because the house is still done up the way that it would have been done up if people were going to be descending upon this house in a week.
Yeah. But yeah, so like this is just something that we just wanted to kind of like, push on people because there isn't a lot of other things going on right now. And so we just hope that people are just doing stuff for this holiday season.
Yeah, do something. And you know what, as much as I like kind of talked through the whole thing, if you have access to the DuckTales season 3 Christmas episode, check it out. Right? Maybe you're not crazy like me and think Scrooge McDuck can do no wrong, and maybe you'll...
maybe Scrooge McDuck won't be a Scrooge. I mean, that's the craziest thing is that they went for it, and you're so upset that they went for it. But like he's Scrooge, he's literally Scrooge. He was introduced as a Scrooge surrogate.
As a Scrooge surrogate, exactly. But the thing is that at the end of it, he becomes non-Scrooge. So it's real regressive to see him like, I hate that Santa Claus so much, I'm going to ruin Christmas for everybody. I'm the Grinch essentially now. I went from Scrooge XB to the Grinch XB. And the reason why the Grinch is because the Grinch got nobody. But Scrooge McDuck has a mansion full of people who would die for him in a second.
Yeah.
I mean, the Grinch has Max, who would die for him in a second, but mostly because the Grinch would totally throw Max in front of a bullet if it were coming for him.
Oh, shit. Going for everybody now. This is it. This is the holiday season. We're giving guns for everyone.
You know what? I don't know. It's just, it's weird. Christmas is weird for me. Because, like, I love everybody all the time, and then, like, Christmas comes around, and it's like, you're kind of treading on my territory.
I'm the happy guy. I'm the joy bringer.
I'm the jolly one. I hate this. I hate this characterization of me. But also all this talk of the Grinch, that's what we're doing. That's our very special episode that you can look forward to on Christmas Eve. is we're going to finish up a year of Jim Carrey movies with How the Grinch Stole... Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Ron Howard's 2002 Celebration.
Celebration. I'm excited. There's some weirdness in that movie to discuss, and because of what it brings to the table. It's not just another telling of the Grinch.
I haven't seen it in 18 years. I saw it in theater, and I have not watched it in 18 years.
I will say this then. I was very surprised you want to do this during the Halloween times, considering how I think a lot of the imagery in it does not hold up. But let's watch it. Let's get this out there. I'm excited.
Yeah. Whoo, dog. Okay. So anything else that you'd like to add before we send this one to the vault?
No, not at all. If you want to come at me, Randy Newman, you can find me at Siege versus the World.
And if you would like to share with me your Cyberpunk 2077 issues or excitements, or have like a real debate about Scrooge McDuck, I'm on Twitter at Devin D. Decker. But until next time, let's send it off to our third wise man, Will. Bring us on home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.